Welcome to Hey, it's Carly Rae's Book Club. This is Book Hour where authors will talk their latest novels, reveal their writing process, and play some fun book games. I'm your host, Carly Rae. Today, we have best-selling author Maggie Stiefvater. We're going to be talking about her first graphic novel, Swamp Thing: Twin Branches, what it was like collaborating with artist Morgan Beem, if writing a graphic novel differs from writing a fantasy novel, and if she plans on writing another paranormal romance book soon. We'll dive in right after this. Hello, Maggie. Tell us where you're joining us from.
I knew the moment that you would cut to me, I'd be drinking a glass of water. I'm in my office, in the middle of nowhere in Virginia, really the middle of nowhere. I can look out the windows and all I can see are trees and cows and fields and my fainting goats.
Now, Swamp Thing: Twin Branches is the newest young adult graphic novel in the DC Comics family. And here is a close-up of the cover along with exclusive clips from the inside. So tell us about Swamp Thing and what readers can expect without giving away spoilers.
With Swamp Thing, what I really wanted to do was, first of all, when DC asked me if I wanted to play with their toys, I thought, yes, I want to play with your toys. That sounds amazing. They gave me this choice of all of these great characters, and I was weighing the pros and cons of all of them. But the thing about picking one of the really well-known characters is that it comes with all of this baggage. So I wanted a character that was well-known enough to come with its own kind of brand feeling, but also that would feel Stiefvater-y. Is that a word? It's a word now. Stiefvater-y. So I picked Swamp Thing because Swamp Thing was really famous, and I know right now there are adults comic fans that are howling in terror right now that I should say that Swamp Thing is not well known, but I don't think a lot of teens actually are really familiar with Swamp Thing. And he's a character that he's very into biology and nature, and that melding of science and magic is very Stiefvater-y. So I picked Swamp Thing because it's a transformation story, a coming of age story that can be science and magic.
And you can put your own twist on it.
Right.
Now, the Swamp Thing: Twin Branches is an origin story that was first made its debut in 1972. So as you said, it is, part of a different generation. Did you find it difficult imagining your take on twins Alec and Walker Holland? How did you get into these characters' heads to craft your version of the graphic novel?
Well, the first thing I did was I made him a twin. Alec Holland originally wasn't. He was just a dude. That makes it sound like twins have superpowers by being doubles anyway, which maybe you do. I don't know. Twins, log in now. So I wanted to make it all about identity, and to make it YA. To me, YA is different from adult because young adult always is talking about the immediate present. It's talking about what it looks like having your entire future and identity in front of you. An adult might be looking at the exact same kinds of events, but it's in a retrospective. You could be talking about a teen, but it's as an adult looking back and saying, well, with the breadth of my knowledge now, this is what it feels like. So I decided to make Alec a twin because if it's going to be about identity and about him changing his relationship with himself, I thought it would be fun to have a sort of uncanny mirror right next to him of the guy that he thinks is normal, Walker, his brother who gets along with everyone, and then he feels out of his skin, and that just becomes more and more elaborate and more obvious as the whole proceedings go on. So it felt, I don't know, DC was amazing because they said, go forth, show us what you can do. And I didn't feel like I had a lot of constraints on it. I just had to really stay true to his biological origins, and that was fun.
Yeah. Now, you got to work with the amazingly talented artist Morgan Beem. In your interview with Bleeding Cool, you said it was fun to see Morgan's art grow wilder and more unsettling as the story desperately dug into the dirt and reached for the sun. Did you have any input on the art with Morgan, or did you give her full reign in the artistry department?
All right. So what was funny about this is that I actually am an artist. I was a full-time portrait artist before I was an author. I used to paint all kinds of fancy children and fancy horses and fancy cats for fancy clients. And sometimes when I didn't have portrait commissions, I would paint copies of the old masters with the heads of cats on them and sell them on eBay. A very romantic sort of career. Anyway, so I am an artist myself, and it was interesting because I decided, you know what, if I were doing this, I would want to be able to do it however I wanted to do it. I would want to have some input, right? So I don't feel like I'm adrift. I want it to feel like collaboration, but I also don't want to be told what to do. So I said, you know what? We're gonna have to let it go. We're gonna have to let it go. Morgan has to be trusted. And you know what? She did an amazing job making it into this kind of creepy and eerie and beautiful. She can make really clinical spaces like the lab seem super cozy. And then she can put you out into nature, which should seem lush and friendly. And instead it's kind of ominous.
Yeah. Now, this being your first graphic novel, what was your favorite part of the process in the production of Swamp Thing Twin Branches?
Oh man, my favorite part, well, the hardest part is that it took all of the things that I normally do and I had to give those to Morgan. And I don't mean the art, I just mean that as a prose writer, normally what I think that my strength is setting mood and place. And that's all taken away from you because that's just written in a line in the script instead. So I thought that part would be awful, but actually can I tell this in a concise way? I'm going to give it a shot. I lost my mind while I was on tour, literally lost my mind. I found out after a collapse by the side of the road on tour, I used to tour all the time, that I was no longer making any cortisol. My pituitary gland had completely, I was going to swear, let's just say it stopped doing what it was supposed to be doing. And one of the things that cortisol does is that it helps control your short-term and long-term memory. And I found myself having an incredibly difficult time writing prose. Words were very difficult to hold in my head. And I felt, most of all, frustrated that I've been born to be a storyteller and I couldn't hold stories. And this project, my favorite part of it is that the script was simple enough that I could hold that in my head during this time when I was still finding my way towards treatment and diagnosis, which meant I got to tell stories even when other stories were impossible. So will readers actually see that? No, they won't. But did it mean something to me? Yeah, it definitely did.
Yeah. Well, you heard Maggie. We are going to be right back after this short break to find out how Maggie's writing process for Swamp Thing Twin Branches differed from writing the Shiver trilogy and the Raven cycle.
Coffee. The liquid that helps us start our day or keeps us going at 2 p.m. when our keyboard pillow nap comes calling. At Fire Department Coffee, we know how important it is to you that your coffee tastes great. So let's face it, when you're choking down 8 to 10 cups of bean juice a day running back-to-back calls, or just trying to keep your wits together while your well-behaved children tug at every last strand of your sanity, we want to make sure that every last drop in your mug is the best coffee you've ever tasted.
Who are you talking to?
That's why at Fire Department Coffee, every stage of your order is watched after by carefully trained professional eyes, like our head roaster, retired fire captain Dave Dave! From our R&D department that's always striving to make sure that your next cup of Fire Department coffee is the perfect balance of wonderful taste and the caffeinated motivation that you need to get through your day.
There has got to be a better way of testing this.
Probably. Making sure that you get your orders delivered to you as quickly and affordably as possible. Hey, Doris, you know you're the only lady I hand deliver to.
Oh, thank you, Jason. I was wondering if you can help me. I think my cat is stuck in the attic again.
Are you sure he's up here, Doris? It's really hot. I can't see anything.
Oh, I'm sure he's still up there. Why don't you take off your shirt? You wouldn't want to overheat.
Not falling again for that, Doris. And at the end of the day, we're just thankful that we get to follow our passion of making high-quality coffee for thousands of hardworking people all across the world. So thank you for your support, and we look forward to making each and every one of your days better, one cup of coffee at a time.
Cut.
Woo! Good job, guys. Very, very nice. Smooth.
A lady named Doris just ordered a couple bags of coffee and asked for it to be delivered by her steamy ginger firefighter.
Oh, that lady is relentless.
Welcome back to Book Hour. I'm your host, CarlyRae, here with the Maggie Stiefvater. Now, Maggie, we are quickly starting to see that best-selling authors are starting to break into the graphic novel scene. I would imagine crafting a graphic novel is much different than crafting a fantasy novel like your Raven Cycle series. At the end of the day, was it really different for you? What was your writing process like in laying out Swamp Thing Twin Branches compared to when you wrote this Raven Cycle, for example?
Every single one of my books that I write starts out with mood. That's the first thing I ask myself before I know characters, before I know plot, before I know the magic system. I always ask, what is it that I want the readers to feel when they close the book? And I realize that that sounds very amorphous, but if you imagine, can I use this as an example now in the days of pandemic when we used to go to movie theaters back in 2019? When you went there, and if you didn't already have a movie in mind, you would just browse them and say, what are we in the mood for? A rom-com or a thriller, a character-driven thing? You don't go and say, I'm thinking about watching something that's set in Chicago with a man who is, dressing in the form of his childhood nemesis or whatever. Just go, what do I want to feel like for the next hour and a half? So when I'm writing my prose novels, I would always ask myself, first of all, what do I want to feel like for the next 6 months of my life as I write it? But also, what do I want the reader to feel like? Yeah. And crafting prose is always used as a tool for making people feel in a certain way. And I thought, I'm never going to be able to pull that off with Swamp Thing because I don't get to use my words. All I'm using is plot and story. And to me, that feels like the weakest part of my storytelling. It's the part that I always think about last. And instead, what was interesting was that a script is a very interesting sort of format. You just write a description, you write what every single panel looks like, and you give the artist as many pieces of information as you think they'll need to tell the story. If you don't need there to be a telephone in the panel, you're not going to say, there's a telephone in this panel, for instance, which meant that every page might take up just, a quarter page of a regular computer page. And to my amazement, I would write these things out, I would turn them into Morgan, and she would give me back these pencils, and it would be what the picture was in my head. And I thought, what is this dark magic? How is this possible? So I started out with a mood for Swamp Thing, and I had a little playlist to keep myself in that mood. And I have to say, I think it turned out that way somehow, magically, amazingly. So even though it felt completely different to write it, I'm not exactly sure it feels entirely different to read it. I'd be very curious to hear what my prose readers think of graphic novel.
Yeah, I'm excited too. I've seen clips of it, and I'm really, really excited for it. Now, a lot of your writing you have done as a standalone, but Swamp Thing Twin Branches, you had a co-author in the form of artist Morgan Beem. How was that process like for you? Did you enjoy having a partner in this novel?
It was interesting because although we collaborated, we didn't collaborate at the same time for most of it. I had to write the entire script beforehand, and so my co-authors in many ways felt like DC Comics because I had to bounce off of them first to pitch. This is what I think Alec Holland will look like. He's now a twin. Twins have superpowers. And I also had to propose an entire outline and then write the script from that. And then, and only then, after we'd gone through edits, did Morgan start to get back her pages. And then there were more edits that we would do as we would go back through and say, does this look clear? Does this not? Which meant it was interesting because it made me think harder about the storytelling process than ever before. All of these steps that normally I would put together. And what was really interesting for me is that because of the pandemic, normally every single year I go out and I teach creative writing classes. And this year I had a big one in Washington, D.C., and I couldn't do it because it was supposed to be first week of June. So, no, it was never going to happen. It was all sold out. It was a very fancy old theater north of D.C. I was very bummed about it, but finally I got the push to put it online. So instead, I went and recorded 8 hours of video of the storytelling process, what I did to think about it. And I think it made me into a more sympathetic teacher than I did before because I had forgotten, having done this for 10 years professionally, how many of those steps I had combined into one step. And when it was working with Morgan, I had to think about, oh no, wait, these are actually 7 different steps. I think to myself, oh yes, you just write this paragraph. No, you don't. No, you don't. There are like 6 different decisions you have to make before you start to write anything. So I think it made me a better teacher. I think it made me a better prose writer too. But yeah, definitely, it felt like a collaboration across the board with editors and artists.
Yeah. Now you have a really unique writing style that first captured me when I read Shiver. There's a touch of fantasy, paranormal, and brilliant darkness incorporated into everything you publish, Even the art in Swamp Things has Maggie Stiefvater written all over it. How did you first get involved in writing? Was that always your writing style?
My goal with Shiver, by the way, the mood that I had before I started writing that was that I wanted to make people cry buckets in public. That was all of my goal. I don't know if you've read The Time Traveler's Wife, but it's the only book in the entire world that has ever made me cry. Yeah. And I was so angry after it made me cry that I thought, I'm going to do this to someone else. Anyway, I've always wanted to be a novelist. And I think that I actually had an advantage because when I was a kid, not only did I always know I wanted to be a novelist, but I knew that I wanted to write commercial novels, which meant that I had a huge leg up because I knew what kind of writing to study. And I also knew, most importantly, that the most important part of commercial storytelling is actually the audience. It doesn't actually come full circle and it doesn't land unless your audience feels the way that you meant for them to feel, which meant that unlike a lot of, especially creative folks that see the world in a different way and don't have a lot of models for what they want to look like, I at least knew exactly who I wanted to be, what I wanted to do it, who I wanted to do it for. And it meant that I could I had no social life. I wrote so many novels. By the time I hit college, I'd started and about 30 novels and finished about half of them. They were terrible, don't get excited. But it meant that I had a lot of practice before I ever really got out of the gate.
Yeah. Now, some people may not know this, but you are also a musician. Does playing music help you get into your creativity flow and get you into the magical lands you create?
I think of, does anyone know this poem anymore about the blind men and the elephant? Have you ever read this? I had to read this in school. This makes me feel ancient. It's this poem, and you know what? I've had librarians tell me who it's by, and I'm sure that after this interview, I will again get all of these people telling me who it's by again. But it's an elephant, and all around it are these 7 blind men, and they're touching this elephant and describing what they think they're touching. And get very fraught very quickly. But one of them has the tail and they think it's a rope, and one of them has the leg and they think it's a tree trunk. They're all describing it in different ways, but actually they're all describing an elephant. So do I think that my music helps me write? I'm not exactly sure it helps me write, but it's a way that I get to describe the elephant from a different direction. One of the things that I love is that when I was young, I used to think, all right, I really want to be a novelist, but I also really want to be an artist, and I also really want to be a composer. But obviously, I don't see anybody else doing all of these things. So one of these Maggies is going to have to be the one that wins, and the other 2 will probably have to die in this Hunger Games-esque kind of battle inside myself. And one of the things that I love now is that I get to do all of those things with my career. So I get to collaborate with artists, so I get to make art for my other books as special giveaways. And every single one of my prose novels has an audiobook, and Scholastic Audio asks me to compose the intro and outro music for it. So every single year I get to go and have an excuse to write a song and compose it and head over to my studio and record it, which feels like all of those Maggies got to make it to adulthood, which, as any kind of peculiar artistic person knows, that's a pretty incredible gift, I think.
Yeah, that's really amazing. I didn't know that about all the intros in your audios. You just found out how Maggie gets into her magical land. Stay tuned, because when we return, it is game time with Maggie.
Hey there, I'm Wes, and I'm a recovering drug addict and alcoholic. Looking back, I don't think I was that different from most who experiment with drugs and alcohol. The only difference is I never stopped. What began with a few pills here and there led me to depending upon roughly 35 Vicodin a day. My addiction rocked me to the point where I ended up living in an old warehouse. I didn't want to live anymore, but at the same time, I really didn't want to die. They say it's darkest before the dawn, and that held true in my case. In a moment of clarity, courtesy of the man upstairs, I got on the road to recovery. It was time to use this gift to help others, and Clean Cause was born. Homegrown in Austin, Texas, and armed with purpose, the Clean team has created a beverage company whereby 50% of the profits go to support individuals in recovery from alcohol and drug addiction. We're ready to rock and roll, but we're only a few. We need you. Buy any of our products and you'll be energizing recovery from alcohol and drug addiction. Shop now at cleancause.com.
We are back with Book Hour, and it is game time. Today we're going to play an all-new game called Guess the Novel. Maggie, I'm going to give you hints about best-selling books, and you have to guess which book I'm talking about. All right, the first one is a YA paranormal book published in 2005. It went on to be a blockbuster phenomena. The color-
Twilight.
Yes.
I'm like, what happened in 2005? Nothing but vampires. That's what happened in 2005.
This thriller series has 22 books and counting. It was also a short-lived series starring Angie Harmon. The most recent book in the series was released in 2020. First to Die is the first book in the series. Which thriller series is this?
Is it Bones? Did it become Bones? Is that right?
No, it's James Patterson, The Women's Murder Club. Okay, I think you're going to get this one. This romance book was published in 1996 and was adapted into film. It's only 214 pages, but the words live on. The most famous quote is, "If you're a bird, I'm a bird."
It has kissing in it.
Yes.
Does it have birds in it?
It takes place, that scene is at the beach. And the characters or the actors are in the ocean.
Does the author's name rhyme with Barks?
The last name, yes.
So it's a Nicholas Sparks novel.
The Notebook.
There's no part of me that would have gotten that. Zero part whatsoever. I'm so failing. I'm like 2-1 here. It's terrible.
Okay, now I hope you get this one. This book is a fantasy fiction and was published in 2009. There are 4 books in the series, and it is licensed in over 32 foreign territories. Some of the main characters aren't human. The first book in the series has over 420,000 ratings on Goodreads. Which book is this?
Is this a novel that the author's last name rhymes with beef fodder? Because this sounds a lot like Shiver.
Yes. I was like, she's going to get this one. Yeah, I was going on Goodreads. Yeah, for over 420,000 ratings.
That's incredible. That is unbelievable. At the height of its success, Shiver was one of those things where I would be on a train and someone would say, "Oh my God, did you write Shiver?" I'm like, I did write Shiver. Who are you?
All right, now the next game we're going to play is Would You Rather? All right, so the first one is, would you rather go jet skiing or parasailing?
Jet skiing. I love speed. I raced cars for a long time. I still kind of do. Yeah. Jet ski is like that, except on water.
Would you rather stay at home or travel to Europe?
Travel, definitely.
Would you rather eat McDonald's or Burger King?
Is there a difference?
I know, I don't know, but apparently there is.
Burger King smells better from the outside.
Yes. Would you rather be stuck on a deserted island or in a treehouse in the middle of New York City?
Oh, deserted island. Yeah, I'm one of those creatures that requires a large territory.
Yeah. Would you rather go out in public with your clothes inside out or 2 different shoes on?
Inside out. Legend has it that keeps the fairies away.
Oh, fun fact from Maggie.
Practical knowledge that you can put to use just tomorrow.
That concludes our game time with Maggie. And I want to thank you so much for appearing on Book Hour and being here with us. Before I let you go, tell viewers what they can expect from you after Swamp Thing Twin Branches. Are you writing another graphic novel or have another YA fantasy novel coming soon?
I have all kinds of strange things that are happening. Actually, I've got a new tarot deck that I illustrated that is coming out in October as well. I am working on the last book in the Dreamer trilogy, which is the spinoff of the Raven Cycle. And I'm working on something super secret that I can't say anything about. Can I? No, I can't. And another totally super secret thing that might involve kissing.
Oh, I am definitely intrigued now. And I am excited to see what else you have up your sleeve. Your writing forever made its mark in the fantasy genre, and I know Swamp Thing Twin Branches will do the same in the graphic novel scene. Tell viewers where they can find you on social media.
You can find me nearly everywhere. I'm on Instagram. I am on Facebook. I'm on Twitter. That's not nearly everywhere, but that's 3 solid places. Or you can just find me. If you could spell my name, it's like a prize, MaggieStiefvater.com.
Thank you so much for joining us. All the links of where to find Maggie Stiefvater are in the description below. And Maggie, I just want to say what you did and what you're going through while writing Swamp Things is really inspiring. So I'm really excited for the world to get to see your new work. Thank you for having me. Yes, thank you again for being on Book Hour. And for those watching, I hope you have a great day.